If you're familiar with the bookstore, you know that in this back room, we do show and tell events where we have people come in the back room. It's a lot of fun and we cover a wide variety of subjects, and occasionally we get a special guest. And the special guest we have now is Dr. Justin Sledge, who has the wildly entertaining and popular YouTube channel, Esoterica. You do not want to miss this show and tell. Watch this. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Reed Moon, owner of Moon's Rare Books. We have a special guest, Dr. Justin Sledge, visiting from Detroit, Michigan. This is going to be a fun evening, and I'm going to let Dr. Sledge tell you what he's going to talk about, and there will be time for Q&A at the end, but we're going to go about 55 minutes, maybe an hour of the lecture, and then it'll be Q&A. So let's welcome Dr. Sledge with a round of applause.
Well, thank you guys for being so strange as to come here to talk about demons and magic on a Saturday night. You're my kind of people. I can already tell that. So let's get right into it. Or let's maybe say just a little bit of introduction. Any Esoterica fans here? Thank you. So yeah, my name is Justin. I study the occult for a living, which means I hang out with demons and weird people, which is fun. Yeah, I study the occult academically, which is a really fun job. And also I am a dealer in antiquarian books. I collect antiquarian books on the occult and also sell some antiquarian books on the occult. And we're going to talk a little bit about the lay of the land of the occult from the point of view of books that have survived. And one of the things I want to point out as we get into this about these books that have survived is that unlike a Bible, Bibles are kind of meant to survive. There's institutions protecting them. There's institutions making sure that they make it. These books were targeted. They were targeted for destruction. This is a copy of Trithemius's book, the Stenographia. This book was put on the index. It was banned almost as soon as it was printed. And so the fact that it survived down to this day is incredible. So in many ways, these books are treasures not only as antiquarian books, which just any book that's 400 years old is like, my goodness. But they're impressive because they survive not just the vicissitudes of time, but they survive the fires of the Inquisition. And in that way, it's very special to be able to handle them and talk about them. But to talk about the history of the occult, we kind of have to start at ground zero. And ground zero, in many ways, is the Bible. Because Western civilization kind of grows up along a Greek route, and it grows up along a Hebrew route. Right? And the famous question, what has Athens to do with Jerusalem? Well, everything. Right? Everything. And when we look at the Hebrew Bible, which is where a lot of legislation will ultimately be derived, we can look at the book of Deuteronomy, or we can look at, for instance, in Exodus 22, and we have lists of prohibitions on what we might call the occult, right? So divination, sorcery, magic, astrology, etc., right? All the things you're not supposed to do. And in fact, Exodus 22 is quite clear, right? Witch, don't let her live, right? Famously, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, as is found in the King James Bible. Many, many people, especially women, lost their lives on that one verse. But there's a problem. There's a trick here. There's an issue in the translation. And the issue in the translation goes like this. In Deuteronomy, we have a list of things that you're not allowed to be. Not things you're not allowed to do, but people you're not allowed to be. So it says, for instance, you can't be a ma'onin, right? Well, the natural question is, if you're not allowed to be it, what is it? Well, if you look at the Hebrew, we know it's a person. The ma sound tells us a person. And we can see in the Hebrew root there the word anan, which means a cloud. So it's crystal clear. Don't be a cloud person. Okay. Don't be a menechesh, a mechashef. Right? Well, some of those words we kind of know. You can hear the word nachash in there, snake. So don't be a snake person. Okay. Don't be a chover. Right? When we go through this list of all these things you're not allowed to do, if you look at a Bible, they'll happily tell you what they are. Don't be a soothsayer. Don't be a diviner. Don't be a this. Don't be a that. They don't know what these words mean because no one does. No one does. This problem goes all the way back to the translation of the Bible from Hebrew into Greek. Right? That line I just told you, machashef lo techei, don't let a witch live. When they translate it into Greek, how do they render that word sorceress? Pharmakus. poisoner. They're guessing too. They don't quite know what it means. Now this takes two routes in the history of the West. One route is we might call sort of Jewish interpretation. Another interpretation we might consider Christian interpretation. Christian interpretation generally follows this tract. No. Period. Don't. Period. We will burn you. Exclamation point. Right? So everything kind of gets banned. Kind of. In Judaism, because there's debate about what these words mean, rabbis, we argue. That's what, we're argumentative people. We don't know what the words mean, and therefore, if they don't know what they mean, there's wiggle room here. There's wiggle room. What does the wiggle room look like? One of the places where the wiggle room first emerges is in the Talmud. In the Talmud, they're discussing these cases of what these words mean. Don't be a Yidaoni. Well, what is a Yidaoni? Kind of sounds like the word for bone. Maybe you put a bone in your mouth and talk to dead people. Okay. They don't know. They're guessing. So they say, well, if you can't do all this stuff, what can you do? And in the Talmud and Tractate Sanhedrin, they're saying, there were two rabbis studying Hilchot Yetzirah. In another place it says they were studying Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. They were potentially studying a version of this book. First printed in 1562. This is the first printing of Sefer Yetzirah. Now this book is interesting because those rabbis did something very strange. They made a person. They shaped them from clay and they brought them to life. What is it called when you bring a creature from clay to life? A golem. This is the first instance we have of the golem. The commentaries on this book detail how to make a golem. Does anyone know the most famous golem in history? Maybe the second most famous one. The Prague one is really famous. The next famous one is Ibn Gabirol's golem, who was his housekeeper. Anyone here like washing dishes, doing laundry? I tell you, if I could do, people are like, can you do magic? I'm like, look, if I could do magic, I'd be making golems to clean my house. Right? I have a whole army of golems. They do my laundry, it'd be great. This is a great place that it illustrates a really important distinction in how the West is going to deal with magic. Because I don't know about you, but making people come to life from clay, if it's not magic, it'll do till the magic gets here. Right? This is a place where we have a tradition where you're allowed to engage in all kinds of, even in the text it says, if you're righteous enough, you can create olamim, worlds. You could create worlds, not just people, that's child's play. You create worlds. Sefer Yetzirah is canon scripture in Judaism. No Jewish person is going to say, yeah, this is trash, throw it out. It's canon scripture. Whereas if you go to your local minister, again, your mileage may vary, and say, hey, can I make people? And they're like, yeah, the regular way. No, the other way, the magical way. They're going to be like, what? No, it's not allowed. That's a really cool preacher. But this is a great example of how this material enters into history. On the Christian side of things, it's a little bit more prohibitive, as you may have known from history. We went to that time where they were burning all the people, right? What we have, though, is an interesting theory about how you might be able to do some magic. So one way that you might be able to do some magic is you might, sometimes you pick the phone up and call God, call prayer. Sometimes God's too busy and you fail the calculus. You ever made the deal with God, you're taking your calculus test and you're like, dear Lord, I know that I haven't studied for this test, but if you pass me, I will go to church more. You still failed the test, right? Sometimes God's a little too busy to answer your prayer, so you might be able to contact an angel. This is a handwritten manual that does many things, and one of which is summoning angels to help you out. For instance, let's say that you're feeling a little peakish. You can summon the angel. What angel would you summon to deal with your health? Yeah, Gabriel. Raphael. Raphael means the healer of God. But you have to know Raphael's secret digits. You can't just text Raphael. He's not going to answer back. You're some weirdo. This is his secret sign, called his sigil. And this is the conjuration by which you reach out and grab Raphael. Hey, Raphael, not feeling great. Come help me out. Let's say that you want to hang out with, Samael, the poison of God. This is if you summon this angel if you want to really put the screws to someone. Not a nice guy. This is the guy who killed all the firstborn in Egypt. Kind of he's like God's hitman. You know, you hear the Godfather music playing, Samael's coming. Gabriel. So this is a great place where you can summon some angels, right? Handwritten grimoires, the 17th century, right? You can also have all kinds of things in here as well. It's a great picture here of Solomon in color with magical signs, specifically the planetary magical signs and their respective astrological representative. It's like 1970s Solomon with the mustache. I always imagine him having more of a beard, but maybe I'm just a beard guy. Sometimes the angels don't pick up either, right? They're busy. You know, God says, schlep this, do this, go tell Mary she's going to get pregnant. They have jobs, right? So the angels are kind of busy, but you still need to get some stuff done. You knocked on this door, no one answered. Knocked on that door, no one answered. Raphael didn't pick up the phone. He's ghosting you again. Who might you call now? You might call the former angels, right? The angels are often tied up with business. But guess who isn't tied up anymore? Because they got tossed out. The demons.
It is okay to take photos, just no video. Photos are fine.
It's a magnificent grimoire, Lesser Key of Solomon, owned by Reed. These are demonic signatures. Right? A great many of them. Sulfur. Brimstone. There's a lot of them, right? How many angels rebelled against God according to the story? A third. So you have your pick of the litter, right? The demons are interesting because they are not so busy. And so you can call them up. You can conjure them. How do you conjure them? By using the same kind of techniques that you might use to conjure the angels. You would use magic circles. So I'll show you. This is an example of a magic circle that you might use to conjure a demon. Conjuring the angels is a little similar. Right, so here, that's for conjuring demons. Let's look at the conjuring angel one. So here we can have a circle for conjuring angels. Let me find it. Let's see here. Where are you at? It's always the demons that are easier to work with. There we go. You can see various names of God, Alpha, Omega, Elyon. Now, what are you going to get demons to do? This is a big question, right? You're going to summon a demon. What are you going to get them to do? Well, you want them to do something interesting. What does every grimoire have in it that everybody wants the demons to do? Housework.
Curse something.
Cursing people, yep. We all have enemies, right? Go get them, Samael. Money. Finding buried treasure. Every time. Crack one of these books open, they're like, this angel will help you find buried treasure. Of course, who doesn't want to, I mean, now we have the angel of the demon of the Powerball tickets, right? You want to get that.
Hey, which one's that?
Yeah. If I knew, I wouldn't be here. People were like, hey, I see you do YouTube. You do all this magic stuff. Can you do any magic? I'm like, if I could do magic, I'd do one magical trick, the Powerball numbers, and I'd be out. These texts allow you to do all kinds of things. Like, for instance, you can get demons to teach you things. Demons have been around a long time. They know a lot. So you can get them to teach you things. Hiring a teacher is kind of expensive. I mean, can you imagine my rate? Right? Yeah, get a demon for half the cost. It's not union, right? You can get them to find you buried treasure. Get them to get you a girlfriend. Very common, right? Get you a demon to pick you out of the grove. Don't never trust a demon's
Choice.
Yeah. Also, don't trust any guy who's trying to get a demon to get a girlfriend. Like, there's therapy that needs there. You need some help. You don't need demons. You need help. These texts, they'll teach you ethics. That's my favorite thing that a demon can do is teach you ethics. Who better to teach you right and wrong than the wrong ones? It's like, here's what you don't do. Rebel against God. It was a bad idea. I could have told them that, though. I'm like, have you heard about this guy, God? Bad idea. Don't rebel against God. So this is a fantastic example of two places where you might be able to summon angels and demons in two different editions, handwritten copies of a grimoire. Now you might be asking yourself, why would a good Christian be summoning demons? Well, one answer is desperation. I mean, we've all texted our ex at the, text a demon at the wrong time, right? So we've all made mistakes, but why that one? It has to do with the logic of how you operate with demons. Who's a person in the Middle Ages that has to deal with demons all the time? Even today. Exorcists. Exorcists have to deal with demons all the time, right? They're pulling demons out of people, right? You might recognize this demon. This is a demon that possessed Reagan in The Exorcist. This is a Pazuzu amulet from the Neo-Assyrian period. Use this guy to scare away Lamashtu. Right? So, yeah. Do you see her around? It's working. So, how do you get to deal with how you deal with demons? Well, you would use an exorcist, right? Because exorcists are a low level of priests in the Middle Ages, and their job is to deal with two kinds of exorcism: minor exorcism and major exorcism. Major exorcism you would recognize: head spinning, pea soup, the whole thing, right? Minor exorcism typically happens to infants before they're baptized, on the way into the church. That low level priest deals with demons all day, reads Latin, knows the rituals. Who in the Middle Ages is able to write this kind of stuff down? Who knows how to do rituals in the Middle Ages? Priests. Father so-and-so by day, necromancer by night. This is what we refer to as the clerical necromantic underground. Right? So this was, because, Farmer Joe can't do this. Where's he going to get a book from? He can't even read. Right? It's not farmers. These are priests. These are relatively low-level priests pulling these books off. So the idea is, right, if I can pull a demon out of you, what are you going to do with them? Put them to work. Put them to work. Never let a good demon go to waste. Right? Go get him. Like, I got the demon. I did all the work to get the demon out of her. Now I'm going to go to find me some treasure. The idea here is, in the same way that a good Christian could tame a wild animal and put it to work, schlepping your stuff around, you could tame a wild demon and put them to work too. So the idea here is, you're not worshiping them. Nowhere in this book does it say you got to worship a demon. You treat them like cattle. You summon them into a triangle, you force them to do something, you torture them effectively, right? And you make them do what you want. The idea here is, we're doing the good Lord's work. Right? So again, now you go to your local priest and ask him, can I go summon a demon to find buried treasure? They'll be like, you need help. They have pills for that. But this is the logic, at least. Logic. It's a strong word, but logic. So again, two different stories of magic. Jewish magic, Christian magic. Right? Distinctly Christian magic. Now, of course, you go to Thomas Aquinas and ask Thomas Aquinas if you're allowed to do this, and he's like, no, this is definitely going to send you to HE double hockey sticks, right? But your mileage may vary. So magic, right, is one of our key elements in the study of the occult. Another important element of the study of the occult is alchemy. Alchemy. In the Middle Ages, there is a debate about the nature of the world. A debate about the nature of the world. One side of the debate says, God made the universe for us, and what you see is what you get. God made everything for us, and what you see is what you get. The other guys, my team, are like, but wait, there's more. And what is that stuff? It's all the hidden things God has hidden in reality. God's hidden all kinds of strange things in reality. For instance, there are weird rocks that when you put them next to iron filings, the iron filings move to the rock. That's strange. There's a big rock in the sky, but depending on where it is in certain times of the month, the tides move differently. There are these forces in reality that seem to be hidden, and we don't see how they're connected. What is tugging, right? How did the plants in the ground know that it's spring to start pushing up through the earth? Well, the sun is reaching down through some means we don't fully understand and pulling them up. This is what the medieval people thought. Those forces are hidden. And what's the Latin word for hidden? Occultus. The occult has nothing to do with worshiping Satan or things like this. It's harnessing the hidden powers of nature, or supernatural powers that are hidden from us, and manipulating them to increase the dignity of the human being, the dignitas, as they would say. In Jewish mythology, Jewish tradition, there's an idea that says, yeah, you could see the demons, call them shadim. If you could see the shadim, that's all you would see. There's so many of them, right? So the idea is you can manipulate these forces. That's what the occult means. Alchemy is also manipulating a fundamental trait about reality. If you go read someone like Thomas Aquinas, who we all know and love, I love you, Thomas. Thomas says God has made certain metaphysical categories, and you can't break the categories. They're built into reality. For instance, you can't make a dog into a donkey. No matter how hard you try, you can't make a dog into a donkey. You certainly can't make a rock into a donkey, because rocks are a different category than animals. You can't mix the categories. The alchemists are like, sure you can. Of course you can. Everything we know of is a combination of earth, air, fire, and water. You're just a ratio of earth, air, fire, and water. That's just a ratio of earth, air, fire, and water. A little more earth in here. You poke your hand, what comes out? Red water, right? You're just some combination of earth, air, fire, and water. And the idea is, if we can muck about with that ratio, we can do things by art, by artifice to that ratio. What can we do? We can manipulate the fundamental structure of things that exist. What is one way that we might do that? One of the ways we might do that is we might subject it to something like distillation. You've all benefited from an alchemist today. Anybody put gas in their car this week? Yep. You've done that only because an alchemist invented distillation. Right? Distillation was invented by an alchemist, not just an alchemist, but a lady alchemist. Maria Hebrea invented distillation. Right? Fractional distillation. You could use this exact same technique to make gas. I don't recommend you do that, but you could. This is fractional distillation as discovered by an alchemist. This book is a collection of different techniques and different tools the alchemists used to attempt to manipulate nature. Not only that, it was owned by a pretty famous occultist. Speaking of lady occultists, this was owned by Madame Blavatsky. So if you're a fan of the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky owned a copy of this. So the alchemists were really interested in learning how to manipulate reality physically in order to transform nature. If you've ever enjoyed a distilled spirit or put gas in your car, you can think an alchemist. Right? We always think of them as sort of bubbling, doing random stuff. That was not alchemy. Very careful, technical transformations. My favorite alchemist. Anyone have a favorite alchemist?
Maria Hebrea. Maria Hebrea.
Oh, Maria Hebrea is great.
Zosimus.
Oh, Zosimus, yeah. I have one of the grandkids I'd love to meet. My favorite alchemist also has the best name in history. Right? Let's walk through his name. Right? Philippus, Aureolus, Bombastus, Theophrastus, von Hohenheim. Can you imagine your name being Bombastus? Mr. Bombastic? Better known as Paracelsus. Paracelsus. What's fascinating about Paracelsus is that Paracelsus was an iconoclast. Famously, he took the standard textbooks of medicine and he went to the university faculty and he burned them in public and said, "We are done following books for the sake of antiquity. Being old doesn't make you right." Real iconoclast. Paracelsus was fascinating because he was willing to combine not just alchemy, but he was willing to combine alchemy with magic. And in his collected works, we can find his use of magical sigils as a way of healing people. This is my favorite one. Eliphas Levi referred to it as a trident of exorcism, but it's not. It's for that very terrifying problem called impotence. You get a trident to fix your pee-pee. It's great. So you see these on Etsy sometime, and people claim they do all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't do that. But good for you. This fixes all kinds of things. Paracelsus is very important because not only did he combine magic with alchemy and medicine, but also he invented this little thing called pharmacology. Right? That guy over there in that painting, does anyone know how he died? George Washington?
Bled to death.
He was bled to death. The best medical care you can get in America. It's about the same, right? He was bled to death. Why? Because he had a fever. And what do you do when you have a fever? You get out the liquid inside of you that is hot. You balance out the humors. I forget how much blood ultimately bled out of him, but it basically killed him. Paracelsus was like, That's the bad idea. Let's take things from nature and combine them into medicines that we can take, and that will restore our health. He invents pharmacology. He also realizes that you can take certain kinds of things and they'll kill you. And he says famously, the poison is in the dose. He invents toxicology. So this is a place where a huge step forward happens, right? The old Galenic medicine, right? When to balance out your humors, just bring out the leeches, right? Paracelsus is like, let's pump the brakes on that and let's try to find other cures in medicine. So again, here we have an alchemist using alchemy to develop not only magical cures, but also therapeutic cures, which involve the use of medicines. Very important person. Is like one of the most prestigious medical schools, I think, in Switzerland is the medical school of Paracelsus. So this is alchemy, right? Another one of these arts. Now, where does alchemy think of itself as coming from? It thinks of itself emerging from Egypt. And in fact, we know that it did emerge from Egypt. It was a combination of Greek theory and Egyptian technical skill. Right? I mean, again, all you have to do is, like, how many people have seen the golden mask of Tutankhamun? I mean, those people knew what they were doing. I mean, just, if you see it in real life, it's breathtaking. I mean, you just, like, it's like human hands could not have made this, especially human hands that many thousands of years ago. Everybody respected the Egyptians for their technical knowledge. What they argued was that back in Egypt, this primordial wisdom of the Egyptians was primarily taught by one person. And that person was Hermes Trismegistus. That is to say, Hermes the thrice great. And Hermes allegedly left behind a series of writings called the Corpus Hermeticum, right? And the Asclepius and some other writings. This is a copy of those writings from 1542, bound with a copy of Tacitus, the Roman historian. So this is the Corpus Hermeticum, along with some other great hits. Iamblichus, any fans of Iamblichus? Founder of theurgy. Proclus, very important Neoplatonic, and his book on magic. This is one of the most important textbooks on magic in the medieval world. In fact, Reed has a lovely copy signed by Houdini. So, yeah, you're gonna do the magic, do it all the way. So this is a copy of Hermes Trismegistus's collected wisdom coming from Egypt. What's spectacular about Hermes Trismegistus is that people became so convinced of his importance that if you find yourself in Italy, which you should at some point in your life, it's a lovely country, go to Siena and go to the cathedral in Siena. Beautiful black and white floor. And in the cathedral, you can find an image on the floor of Hermes Trismegistus teaching Moses. Moses, right? Burning bush Moses. Up in the mountain Moses. Where did he learn all his wisdom? In a cathedral. He's depicted learning from Hermes Trismegistus, from this literature. When Ficino was translating Plato, and this was rediscovered, he was interrupted and told to work on this. All right? So many people think this is the great primordial wisdom of the ancient world encoded in the works of Hermes Trismegistus. So again, we have a connection here. Alchemy, right? And again, not an accidental connection. This is a place where literally this stuff is being incorporated into Christianity. You have a sort of Hermetic Christianity. Have you ever heard the word hermetically sealed? That's where the phrase comes from. It's Hermes is related to alchemy. Hermetically sealed means you've sealed it completely. That's where the term literally comes from. What else do we have? Sefer Yetzirah. This all comes to a culmination in what I believe to be, and I would think many people would share the opinion, the most important statement of the Hermetic and the occult philosophy in the Western world, and that is the 3 books on occult philosophy by Cornelius Agrippa. In this book, he details the secrets of the natural world, the secrets of the celestial world, and the secrets of the divine world. And he believes that if you correctly understand the supernatural, secret, occult nature of the natural world, the celestial world, and the super celestial world, you can become deified. Because your soul is a region of God. It's made in the divine image, and therefore is from the divine image. And guess what it wants to do? Like attracts like, it wants to go home. How do you get there? Agrippa thinks you can get there in this lifetime. How? By unlocking these secrets and elevating your soul to a higher and higher degree, and you can receive what Agrippa refers to as the illumination of the soul, the divine illumination of the soul. And Agrippa takes us from the natural world All right, so we have natural magic, everything from like how to use a magnet, which they're pretty weird, right? All the way to celestial magic. So for instance, if you want to contact the angels that govern the planets, that's their digits. Right? You can draw down their energy. Because again, imagine why he thought this. We know the moon affects the tides. Medieval people, Renaissance people, knew that the other planets were big, even bigger than the moon. And they seem to also affect things. And so if they're affecting things, they must be able, we can conjure those effects and use them somehow. So here are the planetary intelligences, the sigils for the various planetary intelligence, like the sun and the moon. They're fantastic, great illustrations. And eventually, right, you can even learn to communicate in the language of the angels. These are the angelic alphabets. This is how the angels write. It's actually called Malachim, angelic. So if you need to send an email to the angels, make sure you type it in the correct font. Right. And you can also begin to alter the spiritual makeup of your body in such a way that it is spiritually returned to its correct state. You can learn some magic words along the way. Imagine many of you will recognize this magic word. Abracadabra. It's Aramaic. It's kind of garbled Aramaic. It means, I create as I speak. Abracadabra. In the very beginning of Genesis, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created bara kadavra. It's kind of badly garbled Aramaic, but remember, when God speaks, creation happens. When God says, Yehi or, let there be light, Vayahi or, and there was light. God speaks through creation. This is the text, the Jewish text that describes that. Agrippa is incorporating elements of it into his magical system as well. Another great image from this book. I'm sure all of you have seen it at some point. I can show you a little mystery as well. The occult proportions of the human body. This is like a spooky Vitruvian man. I'm sure most of you have seen these images. Now, they get taken out of context and used in horror films, but this has nothing to do with devil worship. It has nothing to do with Satanism. This is about restoring the occult balance to the human being. There's a great mystery in here. That mystery is to be found on this page. We don't know what these numbers mean. And we know Agrippa was intimately involved in the publication of this book. And we know that his teacher was Trithemius, who I'll talk about in just a minute. His teacher, Trithemius, also pioneered a strange technique in this book, The Secret Writing of Trithemius. This is a technique by which you can use angels to rapidly send messages, rapidly acquire languages, and transmit your thoughts over a long distance. Now, how can angels do that? Well, angels aren't made like we are. We're kind of like, meat sacks. We have to go through space. Angels are not. They move instantaneously. They're not physical creatures. They're spiritual creatures. So what do? Trithemius tells us that you encode your message in the way that the angels can understand. Now, I know that everyone's going to say, Claude Shannon invented information theory. Trithemius did. He's imagining you have to encode it in a way the angels can transmit it. And you pick the correct time to get the right angel. You got to dial it in. And when you dial it in, you can use the angel to send the message. And the way that you figure out which angel you need to use, aside from these tables, is that you use this technique of a magical circle to figure out which way to face to send your message. This was Agrippa's teacher, right? The abbot Trithemius. What's fascinating is that even in the past 20 years, if you look at book 3, it's incomplete. There's a funny story behind why it's incomplete. Trithemius was working on it, and he sent a letter to a buddy of his to tell him that he was making this incredible book where you could send stuff instantaneously. And when the letter got there, the guy was dead. And somebody else opened it and was like, what? This is clearly bad. And his name was Bovilius. And Trithemius really got knocked over the head with it. See these weird charts with all these numbers and letters? A code breaker, I think he worked at MIT, was able to discover, after hundreds of years of them lying in plain sight, there are codes inside this book. We think that maybe this might be a code too, but we don't know. You don't know. If you crack it, you'll be like famous on Reddit. You'll be famous for me. This is a fantastic book, right, where in some ways, this is like angel email? Sure, right? Again, relatively benign, we would think, but got him in a lot of trouble, actually, at the time. So, some more magic. Hermes Trismegistus, Paracelsus. We're looking at all of this, right? I mean, again, another thing I will point out here. The Catholics got interested in Kabbalah, so they're interested in those weird Jews, you know, they're up to weird stuff, man. They found the secrets of the universe or something, I heard. So what do the Catholics do? They're like, we got to get that, we got to get in on that too. So what happens? Some of the Catholics actually began to study the Kabbalah. They began to learn Hebrew. The only people you're going to learn Hebrew from are Jews. Some of them converted, some of them civilian. And this famous book is produced called the Arcanis Catholicae, the arcane aspects of Catholicism. And what does it show? This is commissioned by a pope, no less. What does it show? That the truths of Catholicism are to be found in the Kabbalah. Right? The truths of Catholicism are to be found in the Kabbalah. And in addition to that, this is also bound with an extremely important book, because one guy really took this hook, line, and sinker and said not only are Christian truths to be found in the Kabbalah is actually superior to some Christian theology. And that guy's name was Johannes Reuchlin. And Johannes Reuchlin wrote a very famous book called De Arte Kabbalistica. You can see all this beautiful Hebrew print. He really knows Hebrew well. Reuchlin is a very important person in the history of all of this, because Reuchlin is directly learning from Jews, and it's really difficult to be a bigot when you're sitting across the table from people, learning from them. And Reuchlin famously came out and said, you know what? We don't need to be burning their books anymore, and we don't need to be burning them. We can learn from them. Reuchlin famously defended Judaism, defended Jews, and defended Jewish books when burning them was kind of what you did on a Tuesday. Reuchlin learned in the process of adopting to some degree the idea of Kabbalah, a sense of religious toleration. And I don't know about you, I like religious toleration. I think that's a great value, but it's a value that's only possible really to learn if you're sitting across the table from people different than you. Reuchlin argued with a dude named Pfefferkorn. Pfefferkorn was a Jew who converted to Catholicism and demanded Jewish books be burned. Right? Don't like that guy. It was the German Catholic Reuchlin arguing against him. And why did he argue with him? Because he thought there are secret truths found in the esoteric teachings of Judaism. So again, this is one of these places where we don't think about, we all take for granted the idea of religious tolerance, but we don't think about where it came from. It came from this tradition. Right? Because no one wants to be tolerated more than the people who get persecuted. And you can imagine these guys got their share of persecution. Now, while this is all going on, Agrippa's publishing the 3 books of occult philosophy. These guys are summoning demons. That dude's sending emails with angels. At the same time, the lady occultists of this time are not doing well. This is the time period of the witch trials. Fired in many ways by this hideous volume. Perhaps one of the most terrifying books ever written. This, of course, is the dreadful Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of the Witches. This copy is especially interesting, so it belongs to Reed, because it is signed by Casanova. Yes, that guy. This is a sexy copy of Malleus Maleficarum. This book is decisively important because it makes a very distinct change in the way that they understood sorcery. Prior to Malleus, mostly, it's a little simplified, but prior to Malleus, The idea was sorcery was a sin like any other sin. You know, you stole something from Menachem, you got to go give it back, and you need to do 15 Hail Marys and some jumping jacks, and you're good to go, right? It was a sin, and you could get it fixed. Institutor Kramer changed that. He was a bit of a psychopath, right? He was obsessed with this local woman. He put her constantly talking about her physical body. He tries to get her on trial for witchcraft. There's no grounds for it, and eventually the bishop kicks him out. I mean, think about how Looney Tunes you got to be for the Inquisition to kick you out. Like, you got to be out of control. Well, he is out of control. He takes his toys and goes home, and he writes this, right? And now, if you've ever read this, if you ever had a chance to read Malleus Maleficarum, you might have like an uncle that like goes on Facebook rants in all caps, right? You got that uncle? It's this. That's this guy, right? That's this guy. It reads like a rant, a misogynistic rant. What's his argument? His argument is that sorcery, specifically witchcraft, maleficia, is not just a sin. It is a heresy. It's a heresy. What's emerged, according to him, is a new sect at the end of time. The world's about to end. Everyone agreed about that. The world's always about to end. And what's happening? Satan's bringing out the big guns. And what are the big guns? Witches. Women, all of them, are at some level in league with the devil, and they are openly leaving Christianity and joining a diabolical religion. All y'all get together at night at the Sabbath, right? They do all kinds of bad stuff to dudes, pee-pees. He's obsessed with it. I mean, he's like a Freudian test case. I mean, literally, like, it's like he makes them disappear. And he just like, and he mentions it like a dozen times. I mean, the guy really needs help, right? He needs to be on a couch somewhere. It's like, you know, really a thing. But Institutor argues that this is about to break out, and women in general are all involved in this. And because they are not just sinners, they have not just abandoned Christianity, they've joined the other team. And therefore, we don't have to deal with them as sinners. We need to deal with them as a new kind of heresy. How do you do that? Right? How do you do that? And in fact, if you don't believe him, you're in league with the devil too. He says it's incumbent on every Catholic to believe this. Right? So how do you do that? You go to a village, right? And you ask, has something bad happened? Well, it's the 1500s. The answer is yes. Half the village is dead because of the plague or a hailstorm or something. And then you begin to ask the questions. Is there a woman here who lives by herself? Is there a woman here who curses? Is there a woman here who doesn't go to church as much as she should? Is there a woman here who doesn't get along with people? And inevitably, what happens? That's her. And what happens to her? She's arrested. Now, she's guilty until proven innocent. And guess who has to prove her innocence? She does. Because she can't hire a lawyer. Because if you hire a lawyer, if you're convicted of witchcraft, what happens to the lawyer? The lawyer just defended the devil. And guess what that is? Illegal. The lawyer goes, right? Agrippa, our friend here, Agrippa, famously defended an accused witch and got her emancipated. Right? Very dangerous what he did, but heroic to my mind. So now the process begins. What the Hexen process, the witch hunting. Now, of course, the moment you arrest her and you ask her, "Are you a witch?" No. But of course she's going to say that because the devil is the father of lies. Of course she's going to. No, now we have to extract the truth through torture. Through torture. Well, there's rules here, folks. This is the Inquisition. This is not, the Big Blowski, right? This is the Inquisition, there are rules. You can't just torture people any way you like. You can't break their bones, and you can't cause them to bleed. Right? So you can't, right? There are rules. So what does Institutor say you should do? What kind of torture should you use? The strappado. The strappado. Right? It's like going to the chiropractor. Tie your hands behind your back. They lift you up. And they leave you like that overnight. Overnight. Slowly, 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 gravity's going to tear those muscles and tendons and pull your shoulder out of the... Have you ever dislocated shoulder before? Yeah, that's fun. Imagine sitting with that all night long. If you're really not talking, they'll attach a weight to you. They come back the next morning. How many here are going to be like, yeah, I'm not a witch? I think by the end of the morning, I'm going to tell you I'm the Queen of England if you ask me. Right? And if I'm really not, and by the way, the devil can make you resistant to pain, right? And so sometimes you got to turn the volume up. So what do? You begin to hit the rope with a stick or bounce them up and down, right? Because you can always let them back down and do what? Relocate their shoulders, start the process over again. You will crack. You will crack. I don't care who you are, right? Very rarely do people not break. And all the while, they are whispering in your ear, if you just confess, this will all end. And the moment you confessed, right? What was the expectation? This is a heresy. You're not alone. Tell us who the other witches are. 1 becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 becomes 60,000 women. It's a feedback loop. Once the process started, there was no stopping it. This was what happens when a conspiracy theory becomes the law. This book was so evil that the church banned it in 1600. It came out in 1486. It was eventually banned in 1600. But they weren't done with witch hunting. By no means. It was replaced by an even more terrifying book. This is just a good old-fashioned Dominican rant. Now the Jesuits are involved. And you know you got trouble when the Jesuits get involved. This is the most systematic work on the occult produced by the church in the early modern period. It's called The Investigations into Magic by Martin del Rio. This book details the nature of witchcraft. I'm going to tell you all the things about it. Let's see. Let me read you the it's a great frontispiece. Various instances of magic as it's practiced in the Bible. It's a beautiful frontispiece. Most people have not heard of this book, but this one is in fact in many ways even more terrifying. So you look at the part 1 on the nature of magic, part 2 on demonic magic, part 3 on witchcraft, part 4 on prophecies and how to separate divination and prophecy from witchcraft, part 5 on the judicial office, specifically on how to prosecute witchcraft, and finally how to remedy it, how to make it go away. Most of it involves doing a lot of damage to people. This book is terrifying in many ways because it is such more systematic, so much more thorough. I mean, just look at them in terms of a comparison of size. This is really, really scary. Now, what's happened between 1486 when this comes out and 1599 when this comes out? Well, it gets discovered just a little bit after 1486. Yeah, Christopher Columbus is found adrift at sea by Taino and Arawak people, right? Now, those people are not Christians. They're not Christians. This will make them into Christians. How many Maya books survive? 5. The Inquisition came to the New World, and it came to the New World in the backs of a Jesuit writer named Martin del Rio. What was unleashed on the women by this psychopath was unleashed onto the indigenous people by this one. Right? So, this is the world of really dangerous stuff. There's something terrifying about these books. Honestly terrifying. But there's a silver lining. You're guilty until you can prove your innocence. We learned a lesson. Human beings are really bad at learning from history. All right? We're not good at this at all. We're like, look back at time and we're like, I bet that'll work if we try that again, right? One of the things we learned is that the witch trials were a nightmare. We all look back at that rightly with a horror, a sense of horror, right? One of the main juridical changes that occurred after the witch trials was we assume your innocence, and it's the job of the state to prove your guilt. One of the upshots of all of this, again, the silver lining as much as there is one, is that our judicial system changed in the West because of the horrors of the witch trials. So this is a place, and that's the reason why Agrippa and John Dee are right over there talking to angels and writing books on occult philosophy, and nothing bad happens to them. But women are being targeted. They're sinners. The women are heretics. See the difference? That's why one happens to one way and when the other happens to the other. So what we have in this collection, and there's a couple more books we could talk about here. I'll just mention a couple last two real fast. This is the Demonology of James I. All right, this is a very important book in the history of demonology, especially in English. You know, when kings get involved, then it's going to go badly, right? So this is the book. This is James I's Demonology. This book is really interesting for lots of reasons. One, it's put in dialogue form, so it's meant to be more accessible. James I believed that there were witches actively attacking him, specifically while he was on a boat, right? So he is really paranoid and passes the Witchcraft Act in 1603 or 4, I forget. But this book is really interesting and scary because there is another scholar on the continent named Johan Weyer. Johan Weyer is the student of our boy Agrippa, and Johan Weyer does something very interesting. He's a physician. He interviews women sentenced to death for witchcraft. And what he finds about them, he interviews them as a physician, what he finds about them is that all of them are poor. The single greatest predictor for witchcraft, being convicted of witchcraft, was being poor. Right? It was the single greatest predictor. Secondly, right, is he found that all of them were somehow suffering from what he called melancholia. Now, melancholia doesn't mean being sad. It's now our word for something like schizophrenia, manic depression, dementia. All of them were suffering from mental illness. And Johan Weyer says we need to be treating these women, not killing them. James I, in his book, says Johan Weyer is in league with the devil. Can you imagine being a normal physician just trying to help people, and the King of England puts a target on your back? Terrifying. This is the connection, right? We can see these connections. Agrippa's student, Weyer, says it's melancholia. Agrippa defended a so-called witch. Agrippa's teacher is Trithemius, the angel magic guy. They're all talking. Lastly, right, just a couple more books as we start to wrap up. We talked about religious toleration and the idea of a universal religion. As you probably know, the wars between the Catholics and the Protestants devastated Europe. You know, for 30 years they fought, right? I think there's even Rolling Stones. It's sympathy for the devil, right? When he talks about the Catholics and the Protestants killing each other. One of the groups that wanted to attempt to restore Christianity to a single whole under a new mystical idea, a new occult rubric, were groups that aligned themselves with what were called the Rosicrucian manifestos. One of those texts is like this one, right? By Heinrich. Anybody here heard of the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus? There it is. More like an emerald mountain, but hey. This is the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. And if you want to get some pictures of these books a little bit closer up later on, that's totally possible. This book is a really lovely edition because there's tons of these beautiful woodcuts at the beginning. One of my favorite ones is does anyone know what animal is the most associated with the study of the occult and the esoteric?
Cat.
You think cats, yeah? Familiars? Owls. Owls. This one's great because whoever owned this at one point decided that one owl wasn't enough, so they added another one. Twice the owls. This is Heinrich Kuhnroth's book, the Amphitheater of Wisdom, the Fortress of Wisdom. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woodcuts. Agrippa's book, right, would be banned, but not forever. People took an interest in the occult after the so-called Enlightenment, right? And this book, the Magus, in the collection of Reed, is fantastic because it contains elements of Agrippa published in modernity. And if you're familiar with the Golden Dawn, or Aleister Crowley, or Joseph Smith, right? They're reading this book. And this is the book that is ultimately going to pioneer the modern occult revival. We've seen these images before, right? In the Agrippa just a minute ago. But again, think about someone like John Dee. What is he doing? He's having someone stare into a crystal ball to talk to angels. It's not much different from that staring into a crystal ball to find treasure or to translate a sacred text. Right? So again, all this stuff is wrapped up together. What's great about the demons or the spirits in this book is that they're all hand-colored. Absolutely beautiful copy of the Magus. This book would influence Ebenezer Sibley and the folks that would ultimately go on to do the magical Renaissance. It's great. Beautiful, beautiful books. The occult, the magical, the world of alchemy, the world of astrology, the world of Hermeticism, alchemy, all of this. Most of us have been raised to believe at some level it's at least reeking of the devil. There's some connection in it to Satanism, something dark. You hear the word occult, you think, ooh, right? Ooh, you're up to no good. The truth of the matter is, it never was like that. That's a story told by people who wanted to suppress it. Why do they want to suppress it? Because they didn't want people like Agrippa saying, you can get to God yourself, because inside you is God, and you can restore that divinity back to God yourself. Because you can imagine those folks, no, they got a monopoly on God. They don't want you to cut the middleman. They're the middleman. Right? The idea that you could muck about with angels and demons, the idea that you could transform nature. People don't want that kind of stuff. People are scared of change. And this kind of material represented a change. It represented a different worldview. And what do? You dismiss it by calling it the devil. It's Satanism. Bad, right? But what happened, what I want to argue, what I want to leave you with, none of that's true. This is history. This is spirituality. This is a path toward enlightenment, a Western way of a path toward enlightenment. These are books born out of religious toleration, where people who were very different religiously sat down across a table from Jews and learned to care about them and defend them against their own religion. That's beautiful. It's amazing. These are alchemists transform nature. There is no modern science without the belief that just below the world that you can see is another world. And we can access that world and we can transform this world. There's no science without that. There's no chemistry without Maria Hebrea, without alchemy. It just doesn't exist. There's no modern medicine without Paracelsus. It's not that this is a minority, weird thing in history. That's not true. This is a cornerstone aspect of the West that we've chosen to have amnesia about because we've told ourselves a myth about the Enlightenment, or we've told ourselves this is just evil. Shouldn't study this stuff. I'm here to tell you, it's not just that this is history. Faulkner famously said, the past isn't dead. It's not even past. If you put gas in your car, think an alchemist. You took a medicine this week, think Paracelsus. You tolerate people of other religions, think a Hermeticist or a Rosicrucian. Right? Inside of this world is a world where core values and core ideas that make the West developed. And it's high time, in my opinion, that we cease with the amnesia and we begin to study this material seriously. Whether you believe in it or not, whether you believe you can send magic messages with angels, that doesn't matter. What do you believe? What matters is this is the ground of history, and it deserves to have its day in the sun along with everything else we take for granted. Otherwise, we have to tell ourselves bizarre myths like chemistry randomly appeared in the 19th century. What are you talking about? It's a bizarre. Cryptography randomly appeared. No, it was being developed by these people doing this kind of material. And if I told you there is one degree-granting institution in the world that covers this, the University of Amsterdam, it's where I studied, one. And I believe that's real bad, because I believe that's a place where we're letting all of this history be forgotten. And I think we're letting it be forgotten because some people want it forgotten. I want to see it as a part of our cherished history, as a part of our religious heritage, our philosophical heritage, and our spiritual heritage. It doesn't mean you have to believe it, but it does mean it deserves to be studied. And I think, in many ways, right? He who laughs last laughs best. These are survivors. These books are banned, right? These books cause mass murder. Many of these are survivors. And what I want to say is they've won in some way. Because at least through someone like me doing the work that I do, that they get to have a voice again from the past. Thank you for letting them speak through me. Thank you guys. Time for questions.
Time for Q&A.
Dr. Nina Pavlovsky book in Latin.
It's in Latin. I don't know that she ever read it. She's a busy lady, traveling the world inventing theosophy. But it's HBB. to Blavatsky. It's neat. Yeah.
Agrippa?
Agrippa.
Was that written?
So Agrippa first wrote the book in 1510. He submitted a draft to Trithemius, his teacher. Trithemius said, "This is great, don't tell anyone," right? That manuscript survives. It's in the University of Würzburg library. It's amazing it survives. And it was, he edited it and then republished it in the full version in 1533. This is a version from 1550.
How many of these books have been translated into English?
So this is a big problem, all right? With one degree granting institution in the world, you can imagine that there are not many of us out there. All right, we are a tiny but loyal army of people interested in this material. So I'll give one example. Martin Del Rio's book, The Investigations into Magic, this finally got translated. It's translated. You can buy it. It's $1,100 because it's published by Brill. Right? But it's been translated. There is not a great. Dr. Skinner has done an edition of this text, although I think it needs to be redone, unfortunately. This grimoire that I have, there's no edition of this. One of the things I really want to work with is having it professionally photographed, archived, and made digitally available. But you'd be surprised at how hard it is to get that kind of work done, right? But there just now was published in the past 10 years a reliable version of the 3 books of occult philosophy by Eric Perdue. It's my favorite version. So it just now got out. So the problem is that there just isn't a ton of people working on this material. I've translated stuff just because they're like, no one else is going to do it. But yeah, there's a ton of material left to be translated. For instance, I mentioned the Corpus Hermeticum, the Hermetic material. There is a 6-volume commentary on this written in the Renaissance. Hundreds of pages, thousands of pages. It's never going to get translated in my lifetime. It's just not. So part of the problem is not only are there not a lot of people teaching this material, there's not a lot of universities that will hire you, right? I was told actively when I was working on this material, don't do it. You touch this material, you are going to lose your career, right? You're going to tank your career, right? And because there's not people working on it, not people translating it, and it's a feedback loop. There aren't available translations. I mean, look, folks, I have to buy books from the 16th and 17th centuries because there aren't even modern editions. For instance, there's a very important Inquisitor's manual called Directorium Inquisitorum. It was so evil that when Edgar Allan Poe wanted to list an evil book, that was one he went to, was the Directorium Inquisitorum. There's no modern edition. If you want a copy, get out the big bucks. So we're dealing with a problem here of not just translations, we're dealing with modern editions, and then that starts again the feedback loop. There's no edition, no one can read it, therefore no one can appreciate it. It's a big problem. So, yeah.
These are all old. Do you run into this problem with the newer text? I've seen some. I don't know what would you call it? The newer kind of ideas that are occultish. I know I've been given some books that are absolutely abhorrent to people of this world.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why. But what's the dilemma to preserving these things?
I think that it's prejudice is one, right? Ignorance is another, right? If you don't know, typically when there's a vacuum of knowledge, we fill it with fear. And so I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of people don't understand things. I think that, and this is also a problem where a lot of modern stuff isn't able to communicate with the older stuff because there's language barriers and things like that. So there's a lot of game of telephone where things get garbled and misunderstood. So there's a lot of problems. I mean, the field is in its infancy. I mean, we first got an endowed chair in Amsterdam only about 30 years ago. So we are in the very infancy of this field. And yeah, it's a lot of problems, that being one. But yeah, I mean, and again, not everybody's bad. For instance, one of my favorite memories, there was a Catholic priest that I grew up with named Father Brian of blessed memory. And we would go to his house and we could just talk about anything, right? God, religion, whatever. He never judged us and never tried to convert us or whatever. And one time I was leaving the parish and he handed me a copy of Sefer Yetzirah, this book, not this one, but a modern copy. And he says, your people wrote this, maybe you can make sense of it. I still haven't made sense of it. But he was the first person to give me an occult book. Was a Catholic priest. So it's again, and I never forgot that, right? Religions don't exist, people do. And
could your desire for this come out of zeal, or was it historical preservation, or?
So I was always interested in this material growing up. I watched like Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World and Unsolved Mysteries and Leonard Nimoy in Search Of. I love those shows, Atlantis and Bigfoot and ghosts and UFOs. And it was just like, this is stuff, it was like, I looked at the world, I would watch a show like that and I'd walk outside and go, the world is weird. There's like secret islands, what is going on here? And I remember thinking to myself, this stuff is weird. And usually what ends up happening, right, is that either you grow up and you become skeptical, right, or you become a true believer in almost all of it, right? You never met the person who believes in one conspiracy theory, right? Right? It's like you go full tilt or not at all. I became skeptical and remained curious. And that's how I've navigated since, right? It doesn't matter whether I believe in any of this. What matters is this voice and this history deserves our attention, because there isn't us without understanding this material. And I'm maybe naive, but I do believe that we should be learning from history. And I think we should be grateful to the things that have given rise to the world that we live in. And when I look at Paracelsus and think, the first critical edition of Paracelsus is just being published in English. The guy invented pharmacology, right? And so this is just a thing where I feel like there's a gap, it needs to be filled, and there's an institutional bias. And I find it to be, ironic that I get a PhD in philosophy and I'm constantly being told, don't study that. And any philosopher worth their salt, the moment someone says, don't study that, I'm like, interesting. Tell me more. And just stories we tell about ourselves, right? For instance, I'll give just a brief myth that we tell ourselves. The Enlightenment made us rational. Done. We're all rational. Wham, bam. Thank you, Descartes. Right? The founder of rationalism, Descartes. Right? Founder of analytic geometry. How did Descartes come to his rational philosophy? He dreamed an angel revealed it to him. It was divine revelation. Go ask Descartes scholars. Is it the case that rationalism is born out of a vision? I was literally told by a Descartes scholar, that didn't happen. And I'm like, Descartes said it happened. They're like, well, we know better than that. Like, the man told you he saw an angel. The myths we tell ourselves. Rationalism and the Enlightenment have disabused us of all this. Descartes didn't believe that. Descartes went to Germany looking for the Rosicrucians, only to come back to France and everyone accused him of being a Rosicrucian. So the stories we tell about ourselves, the stories we tell about Western civilization, they're myths. And I feel like the myths aren't helpful to us. They're not good myths. I'm all about myth, but they're not good myths. Right? We need to embrace this as a part of our history, right? And also as a part of spirituality, I want to sit across the table with Reuchlin, talk Kabbalah. What a cool thing that would be. Yeah.
Before you leave Descartes, last words of Descartes.
What were the last words?
Or, like now is not.
Oh, you're thinking of Voltaire.
Oh, Voltaire.
Oh, Voltaire, yeah. Folks know Voltaire's last words? Priest comes in and says, do you reject the devil and all his lies? And Voltaire says, man, this is not the time to be making enemies. Voltaire also said famously, the Bible's more celebrated than known, and that's the truth.
More
People-
celebrated than.
More celebrated than known.
Oh.
People love to talk about the thing, but they don't read it. They certainly don't read it in Hebrew, in the Greek.
Is there a book that you would recommend that could follow up so I could read about the general theme of your whole presentation?
Yeah, so the best book out right now is by my teacher, which I'm not getting paid to say. My teacher is Wouter Hanegraaff. It's a book called Esotericism in Western Culture. Just came. Yeah, and also, it's, the video this week on Esoterica, the YouTube channel that I run, because I couldn't get a job in academia because they don't touch this stuff. And I've literally had professors tell me, no one's interested in this material. And I'm like, go tell the 1 million people subscribed to my channel that they're not interested in this material. What are you talking about? You've done a survey? But I did a video this week on sort of a study guide if you want to really get into the material yourself. So if you're interested in Hermeticism, here are the top books on that. If you're interested in Gnosticism, Alchemy, whatever, so you can check out my study guide. And it's sort of a self-directed study guide because there's nowhere you can take a class on this. So looking to change that, but at this point, yeah. Did I get your question? Yeah. No, yeah.
With the books that have like the angel alphabet and the symbols and things like that, did the authors write about how they came up with that? Like, how did they even
It's a great
come
question.
up with those symbols to know what even to write?
So the angels gave it to them. So there is a great, I don't know, myth is right the right word. So, Adam and Eve, right? We know this story. We got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and God took pity on us, and God said, when you got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, you lost all the memory of all the cool esoteric stuff that you knew, right? So, but God took pity on us, and God elected one angel, Raziel. It means the secrets of God, and that angel at dawn, right, whispers the secrets that we've forgotten. And allegedly, if you tune to the right channel, you can hear him. And allegedly, some of this stuff comes from him. So some of this is angels reveal it. Sometimes it's you see it in visions and things like that. Sometimes the demons show up and tell you their name. But yeah, there's even cases in some grimoires where people will correct things and say it didn't work, but I changed it, now it works. That's weird. It's like a cookbook. Too much salt this time. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is revealed by angels. And you'll see, right, that there's a lot of, between two grimoires. So here are some planetary angels, planetary spirits. So in a book called The Arbitel, right, you can see that, notice how there's these little rings on some of the letters? That's like the alphabet from the angels. And they think that there's some connection between all these things.
So are they religious at all?
Oh yeah, these are all,
These people that wrote this?
oh yeah, these are all, I mean, with the exception of the Jewish people, yeah, they're all Christians. All Christians. Again, part of the, again, this idea, occultists are anti-Christian. John Dee was a Christian. Reuchlin was a priest. Ficino was a priest, right? Trithemius was an abbot of a monastery. Yeah, they're Christian through and through. So the idea that Christianity stands in opposition to this is just, that's the story that certain kinds of Christians want to tell. But, again, even the phrase, Christian occultism, I imagine for many of you, it kind of like, doesn't sound right. But go tell that to an abbot of a monastery, right? He would say, yeah,
So
Christian
would you
occult.
say that people started taking a different route with it? Because occult, we're going to associate that with something that is evil.
Mhm.
Like there is an evil connotation to that as well.
Yeah.
So with these books, would you say that people took that a little too far in the other direction? Or, because there is both sides there.
Sure. I mean, I think that all of the books here and all the books that I know of are deeply religious in the sense of deeply Christian. Now, of course, there are non-Christian occultists, but I've never really met, or very few of them met, practicing occultists who are like anti-Christian. They mostly just want to be left alone. But yeah, the idea, and of course there are Satanists and stuff out there, but all of these texts historically, they're all deeply Christian. I mean, Agrippa, Christian, extremely Christian.
What about the summoning and demon?
Yeah, Christians. Because they can only do it because they're good Christians. If you're not a Christian in good standing, demons can rip you apart. It's
at that time, the only way you could get an education was to
Be a priest.
Be a priest.
Be a priest.
Or go to a religious college.
Yeah, I mean, they were priests. So yeah, I know this sounds so strange. You're like, how did they square the circle? Because we think there's a circle to be squared. They didn't. Right? It's our sort of biases and prejudices of what we think is possible about Christianity. But for them, they're like, no. In the same way that you could, break a horse and ride a horse, you could break a demon. And in fact, you could only do it because of the power of God. It's only through the power of God.
What's the difference between them and someone who is doing something evil for evil purposes?
Right. Yeah, I think the main thing is they're not worshiping demons or the devil.
Okay, so those people are worshiping.
They might be worshiping them,
Okay.
right? So yeah, not that, but also, I mean, religion can be used to do terrible things. It's all about the tool, right? Like I said, I always say there's no such thing as a religion. They're just people. And, my Catholic priest, Father Brian, sweetest guy ever, gave me a copy of the book. Father so-and-so down the street might not be so nice, right? It all depends. So there are no religions. They're just people. And this is why I think it's important to say, well, the Catholics, I'm like, that's a lot of people, right? So you have to be, but yeah, I mean, the summoning of the demons, but I know it feels like something you're not allowed to do. And I'm sure that you get a priest to tell you you're not allowed to do it. But there's nothing inherently anti-Christian about it. It's just using spirits who've made mistakes for your benefit. It's like a hack.
Take advantage of the demons.
Yeah, take advantage and don't let a good demon go to waste. I say, because you find your buried treasure, you donate some to the church. You show up to the church with a bunch of gold. Where'd you get this from? A getting place? Did you use a demon to get this? Yes.
One more question.
Yeah.
What museum or display has done a particularly good job of communicating something to the general public?
Yeah. So I think the place that consistently represents this material the best is the Rittman Library in Amsterdam. So the Rittman Library in Amsterdam is the largest library of this kind of material in the world. The founder of it is a Rosicrucian. I mean, they're serious, Joost Rittman. And they consistently do really great PR to show that this material is, has a legitimate history. It's UNESCO recognized, and it does that work well. Locally, in the States, it's always the case. And every time I've seen a display in the States, either it's kind of mixing myth, like the Museum of Witchcraft in Cleveland kind of mixes mythology about witches. There weren't any witches. They were just Christian women being killed for no reason. And so they kind of mix mythology with history in a way that I feel like isn't good for a museum to do. But it's always the case that what they'll do is they'll break out a book like The Lesser Key of Solomon and they'll sensationalize it. Look how evil it is. And you'll be like candlelight and it's so evil. I'm like, we gotta, guys. Like, does it stop with that sensationalizing stuff and let's understand this material? So the short answer is very little. Because you make up more money on spooky demon stuff. And I can tell you, YouTube algorithm loves it. I make a video extolling the virtues of Marsilio Ficino's Neoplatonic philosophy. No one watches it. No one cares. They're like, I'm like, look, bro, demons, huh? And they're like, ooh, click. And I'm like, I got to feed my kids demons this week. So I feel like, again, I've participated in it as well. But it's a pity that that the material is so poorly understood that most people they don't have a rich enough understanding to display it. And there's no great museums. There's no great no great institutions to learn about it. There's not even classes you can take. And so this is a place where until things change, the field is still emerging. And like I said, I couldn't get a job in the academic job market. Just didn't happen. And I was like, okay, I'll start a YouTube. My brother told me, hey, start a YouTube channel. I was like, thank God for Jonathan. And I did, and it took off. And I'm like, now I talk to people who are like, yeah, so that worked. I'm like, yeah, it worked, because people are interested in this material. You're just wrong. You like literally don't know anything about this material and telling people aren't interested in it. Like, did you do a scientific survey? No, you don't know. But it's incredible stuff. It's worth studying. Reed has an amazing collection of some of it. I'm building my collection of some of it, and again, some of this will be for sale in our upcoming catalog. So, but thank you guys for coming out on a Saturday night to learn about demons and goblins and witches and sorcerers, and to know that the story of that stuff is a lot more complicated than the Halloween version that most of us have grown up with.
Okay. Now get out of here. No,
Roy was asking about Petasiris's tomb. Me and you were there last year around this time. Yeah.
What do you do in Detroit? Do you teach? Do you research? We live in Ann Arbor.
Oh, wow. Michiganders.
Yeah.
So what do? I run a YouTube channel called Esoterica that highlights this stuff. And I have 2 little kids I'm raising. And I do research. I produce YouTube content, do this book business side of things. And yeah, it's sort of a one-man show, trying to really get this information out there in a reliable way and in a way that's respectful to history and true, I think, to history. And a lot of fun. Ann Arbor's great.
Yep.
It's a great town. You tell the University of Michigan to give me a job.
Yeah. I wondered if you might be there. So.
No.
Before you guys leave, I'm going to open one vault for you.